There, welcome back to the Support Ops Hangout. This is our weekly podcast that helps you deliver a better support experience to your customers. I'm your host, Chase Clements. This is episode 109, Let's Experiment, where we talk about that urge to just change things up as soon as you take that new manager role. But before we dive into that fun-filled, fantastic topic, let's go ahead and intro our panel. So let's go ahead and, not that Carolyn is lesser important or anything else, but let's go ahead and just get her out of the way and just say, hey, Carolyn, how are you?
I am definitely the least important today. I'm good, thank you.
Okay,
I'm
good.
excited for the next introduction you're about to make.
Yes, and now, after so many weeks, so many just there was so much waiting. There's no other word for it. There's waiting. Chase Livingston's back. How are you?
I'm doing well. Now, father. So it's good though. Not a little sleep deprived, probably a lot more so than last time I was here, but it's good to be back.
We miss you.
I missed you guys too. It's good, definitely good to be back.
I mean, I won't say there was a Chase-filled, like Chase-shaped hole, since there's two of us on the show, but there was definitely at least a Livingston-shaped hole missing in our show.
Got it. Well, that's definitely good to know.
Yeah, so we're excited to have you back. Yeah, and just glad that everything worked out with Hunter and all that. So yeah,
he's doing well, growing like a weed. So
awesome. All right, so with that mushy-gushy stuff out of the way, all of our listeners probably tuned in. I mean, I guess I should have put at the beginning of the show, hey, you can just skip to like this point. But yeah, so when you're a new manager, it's really tempting to start changing things up right away. I mean, you come into that new manager spot, all those ideas that you've had at your previous job or that you've heard about on our show or wherever else you get fantastic, great ideas. I mean, you want to start trying those new things right away. But first, we're going to look at a couple of things. First being, how soon should you start experimenting? How soon should you start changing things up? And then kind of more generally, where's the best place to start with all of this? I mean, there's a difference between changing this small little thing and then like drastically redoing things. So Carolyn, let's give you the first pitch at this one. So when you think back long ago, I guess when we first started this show, 109 episodes, way back, when you were kind of a new manager with Buffer, how long did you wait before you started trying out new things? I mean, Buffer's known for experimenting and breaking things and seeing what happens, but how long before you felt comfortable enough to start doing that?
Yeah, so to your point about, I think the culture of the company makes a huge difference here with how quickly you want to do this. I think some companies have a culture of trying new things, and some don't. Don't rock the boat, don't make too many changes. It also might depend on how new you are to the role versus how new you are to the company. And I think I would actually love to talk about both of those, but so for me, I'm lucky enough that Buffer is a really interesting combination of a culture of listening and also a culture of trying new things. So I was, and we all are, and not just managers, but anybody, encouraged to try new things pretty quickly, but also like, I think the key is to try new things with purpose. Like this is often where I clash with, or clash is too strong, but I'm not even as much of a try new thingser as some of the other Bufferoos, because they are much better at being like, well, it's not broken, but let's just break it and see what happens. And I'm not quite as good at that, but I am much more motivated by change for the sake of like what you're trying to accomplish something. So I think on day one, if you have the luxury of having the time and the mental space, and your team has the time and mental space to have those conversations of like, what are you doing that you wish you were doing more of? What are you doing that you wish you were doing less of? What are you doing that takes 13 steps that should take 2? Or even what are you doing that takes 13 steps that should take 12? And just making things more efficient and leaning into like the people who are the closest to the problem, probably, if they start to think through that lens, will have 15 ideas right away. So the sooner the better.
Yeah, I think you brought up a cool little distinction there between if you're new to the role versus being new to the company. So if you, I don't know, if you decided tomorrow that the buffer support needs a new manager there, and you hired outside of the company, how long would it be? Like, I don't know if how long it would be is a good question, but how would you know when you're comfortable enough to let that new manager start changing things up?
So I think in the first like week or two, it's probably great to just learn where the copy machine is. Like at the very beginning, it's sometimes it can just be inefficient to challenge everything because like you just don't even know what's if you're brand new to the company. It's good to like get your feet wet and just understand the culture, I think, at first. But almost immediately I would say start questioning, because there's this magical time when you're brand new to a company that you don't have all of the same context. You don't make all of the same assumptions. You don't have all of the same background as everyone else in the company, and you have this incredible ability to go, why do we do things that way? And everybody else is like, huh, I don't know. Nobody ever asked that question. Or like, why aren't we doing this way? Or I'm curious to learn how this decision was made. And like, you don't get that forever. So that's this like precious thing that starts to slip as soon as you get indoctrinated into a company. So for the brand new to a company, I would say like, as soon as you know which way is up, which doesn't take very long, start just tugging at those threads. Like if you're just like, oh, that's so cool, I had no idea, I'm just curious to know how this came about, or why is this process in place, or what's the history behind this decision or this policy or whatever, and questioning that kind of stuff, even if the answer is, oh, okay, great, I'm satisfied. Like you may find that 4 times out of 5, but then the 5th time everybody's like, because nobody took the time to think about it, and that's really special.
Yeah, you only get to be new once in that role, and that it's not like a superpower really, and it's not like you get special like X-ray glasses or anything like that. But you
It is
do
in a
get,
way.
yeah. So like when I think about that though, I think it like there's this silver bullet, like, oh yeah, let's just bring in a new person every now and then, and we'll see all of our problems. But yeah, there's something special there as far as you have no context, you have no preconceived notions, you have no background for anything from product decisions to company decisions to culture decisions to anything. And I think that's where some magic happens for a while. Like you said, it's a chance to just really look at it with really fresh eyes. So I saw this recently with Mercedes, our new COO. She came in and it was like seeing the product and seeing the company brand new, and I think that was for everybody else around her too. She would come to us with questions, and sometimes, like Carolyn said, you would have good answers, and sometimes it's like, well, just cause, yeah, that's a reason. Yeah, so I think there's something special there. Chase, when it comes to with automatic, did you experience anything similar? Like when you first came to that role, was it because you'd used WordPress before? I mean, you and I had talked about WordPress before, and yeah, you're familiar with the product and everything. But was being new at that role such a big advantage?
I mean, I definitely think there are a lot of advantages to being new and sort of questioning maybe some ways that things are done, that they've just been done for a long time. And I think that's something, not just me, but we've hired so many happiness engineers over the past, 2.5 years or so that I've been with Automatic that, a lot of the ways we've done things and the ways we do things have changed quite a bit, even since when I started. You know, changed tools, changed communication habits, a lot of that kind of thing. And I think a lot of that can probably be attributed to just new folks coming in and sort of rocking the boat a little bit after a while and saying, hey, let's try something different and see if this might work better. Or, this tool, I feel like there's a better way to do this or something like that. So, yeah, I think there's definitely value in having some fresh eyes, which, at Automatic, we're lucky enough to hire at a pretty rapid pace. So we get, fresh eyes quite often.
So how do you because as a new manager in this role, you want to come in and you want to like change things up a little bit, but you don't want to rock the boat to the point where like you're bringing in water on the sides, right? So with your new hires and your new team leads and managers and things like that, how do you find that new ideas are pitched without sinking the boat, without coming across as like, oh, well, this is how I did it at my last job, and I know so much more than you. Like, how do you pitch those new ideas in a good way?
I think a lot of it has to do with, just sort of asking for feedback or asking for some discussion and a conversation around the idea you might have. So for us, that might be a P2 post or something like that on one of our like all happy P2s, and then that way, pretty much every happiness engineer in the company will see it and can, throw in their 2 cents or whatever they might have, and then go from there as to whether a decision needs to be made or whether that idea needs to be maybe implemented or something like that. Another way to do it is run it by Spittle or something like that. I mean, that's sort of his role is a team lead or a mentor to all the team leads of the different happiness teams at Automatic. So he's just there to provide some support and support the happiness engineers. So running it by him, and he's obviously a great person and in a great position to be able to give feedback and say whether, or let you know whether or not he thinks it might be good to have a discussion around it, or whether it's something that may not work out regardless. So that's another way, is just run it by somebody and see how it goes.
With buffers, kind of focus on experimentation and things. Is there any kind of like more formalized process for pitching new ideas, or like how does that happen, Carolyn? How do you keep it from just kind of rubbing people the wrong way?
Great question. If this is something that you're running into, I would love to recommend last week's show. To be honest, was it last week that we talked a lot about this kind of thing? Like, I would say.
Oh man, see, I guess we just need to go back and listen to our own shows.
Like some of the things that we've talked about, for example, this has become a little bit more of a formal process just because we have so many more people, but in general now we have it's less this like, let's just try this thing, and more, let's try this thing, here's why, here's some possible outcomes, and the key one for me and my team is this is when we're going to determine and evaluate it, like determine whether this was a success or not, or this is the point at which you get to go stop the production line, like I hate this. Of course, I mean, if it's really bad, you can do it at any point. But like determining and defining the timeline of the experiment, I would say is the key for getting people to not feel like, oh, we just like always have to go along with these things and like our voices aren't heard and things. And obviously like asking a bunch of questions and getting advice before making that decision. But since this tends to be a little bit more focused on like what happens after, I would say defining the timeline is key.
Yeah, I think for us here at Basecamp, it kind of, there's no formalized like process or whatnot, but it tends to tend to be this organic. First, somebody notices something and brings it up in one of the campfires, and it's like, hey, this is what I saw today. This is the pain point that I ran into. Like, is there a reason why it's that way? Is it a thought out design decision here that we've made as a team, or is it just hasn't really got to the top of our list yet? So that might generate some chat back and forth among whoever happens to be there at the moment, and then that kind of informs the person about whether or not they should kind of think about this a little bit more and make an actual pitch out of it. Pitches for us tend to be just you write up what the problem is, what your idea is to fix it, if there's any other alternative ideas, pros, cons, and that kind of thing for it. A big thing for us is we're a pretty visual company. We skip over the whole let's kind of sketch this out on paper and go right into prototyping out something, so you can click on the actual buttons and you can actually interact with the idea, and that gives you something that just looking at a drawing on a note card just doesn't. So that gets pitch put up, and then even then, some pitches just die out. It might be because you don't have the resources, it's not a priority, maybe the answer is too complex, and maybe if we wait a little bit, there's going to be an easier solution here. But at least when you post the message, it gets it on the record for other people to give you that feedback, or as Carolyn told me a couple of weeks ago, feed forward, so you can kind of know what other people are thinking about it. And then it also helps in planning future cycles too, because with Basecamp we work in cycles, 6-week cycles. So just because we didn't pick up a pitch this cycle doesn't mean we won't on the next cycle. So it's really important to have it on the record. Plus, it gives you a nice chance if it's 3 months down the road and somebody's like, oh yeah, we have this problem. You can be like, look, I thought about that problem and here's the answer. We posted it like 3 months ago. Like, a little bit of like pressure to do something at that point. So yeah, but I think that the key is, as Carolyn pointed out, expectations with your pitch. This is what we're going to change. This is what we expect to change. This is what might change. And if it does go downhill, then here's the stop button for this kind of thing. I think that works out really, really well. Yeah. So
it wasn't last week's. It was 2 weeks ago. It was episode 107 on manager transparency.
Nice. See, if only we kept all of these shows like in a project app somewhere where we could refer back to it and use a find tool or a search tool. Yeah. Oh, all right. So so when you do start looking at things that are wrong and you do start pitching alternatives and ways to fix those or what to change and that kind of thing, and Chase, we'll start with you on this one. What's like some easy things to start with? I mean, obviously you don't want to jump in and it's like, oh yeah, I know that we have like team leads and I know that we're doing great, but Buffer just went all in on like flat structure and that's going to be awesome. We should do that. So let's try that. That seems a little bit much for a newer manager. But Chase, what do you think are some like easy wins to test out, some easy things to test out to start with?
I think, a lot of the things you could try are maybe things that should fit within like existing tools and maybe even existing workflows to some extent. So changing the way you're using your ticketing system or something like that. Trying some new tags to see if you can't help developers out more to find certain issues or something like that. Just change some workflows or some ways that your support team is doing things to be more efficient and also to just answer customers in the best way possible, whether that's working on replies or efficiency or whatever that may be. Trying out something like live chat eventually could be, interesting if you're just doing email support or something like that. Offer live chat to a small subset of users, like new users or something like that. So it's a small volume, but you still get the idea of how it's going to work, how your team is going to handle, fielding those chats, all that kind of thing. I think, both of those things could be super helpful and, relatively easy things. You're not changing your entire organizational structure, obviously, so relatively easy things you can try out within the structure and with the team that you have currently.
Yeah, I like how you point out, like, do it with a small subset of customers first. Like, you're not going to throw open the doors for live chat for everyone. Because
wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah. Because, there's always, again, those expectations of what you think is going to happen versus what can happen. And if it fails, it would fail on a massive scale. Whereas if it's a small subset of new customers, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. That's fine. I mean, we've all done that. We've all tried out new things with a small subset just to see what would happen. It's a little bit easier.
Yep.
Well, I say that, and Carolyn's giving that look. And it's like, wait, have you rolled out something to everybody and then had to roll it back?
Me?
Yeah. Have you ever had like a big, massive experiment like that without doing like a small group first? Because if any company would, Buffer's the one that I would imagine would be like, yeah, let's try it. And that's both a terrifying thing and a good thing. So I don't want you to take that as like a knock or anything.
No, I don't. We're pretty disciplined about A/B testing.
Yeah.
However, sometimes that comes back to bite you, and it would have been better if you had done it for everybody. Like pricing changes is a good example of that.
Pricing changes is a great example.
Yeah.
And that's one of those where, I mean, wow, yeah. So if you've never A/B tested pricing changes, it's fun. it's really, really fun because customers will see one thing and then they'll email you being like, oh yeah, I saw this, but my boss saw that. So like, which one is it really? Yeah, that one's tough.
Yeah, but I want to answer your other question,
Yeah.
which was like, what are some things that are good to try? And so interestingly, for my team, at least in my experience, and this has been true regardless of where we are in our life, in our happiness life and buffer, like whether we have a bunch of new people or a bunch of veterans or a good mix, or like we're doing great with our numbers or we're doing badly with our numbers, like this has been the truth. And that is that if it affects the whole team, they are generally like so happy to try anything new. My experience is that if you move people from between roles or between small teams, like they're like, they'll do it, but they're so reluctant because they're, people, you become best friends with the person that you sit next to, right? So as humans who, especially as a group of humans who love deeply and greatly and effusively, like and I myself am a perfect example of this, like you get very attached to your group. So that is among some of the most painful changes, to say, like, you were working on mobile, now work on individual, or you were doing you were being the product liaison for the Respond team, now can you do it for the individual team? However, that is some of the most impactful changes in my experience that you can make, is recognizing, like, for remote teams, it can be a lot about time zone as well. So that's something to consider. But even if it's not about time zone, if it's about personality or just flat out need, like we just need somebody who's a leader and who is fearless, and you have those two qualities, like, can you go be on this team? Or we need somebody who questions everything, or we need somebody who, like, is just, like, so excited about this particular piece of the product that we're working on. And even though those are sometimes the most painful, and, like, people are the most hesitant, and there's the most friction to that emotionally, in my experience, that is some of the quickest way to fire up the team, shake things up, give people sort of new goals, and give people a chance to, like, get out of if they're in, like, ruts, or if they're just been doing the same thing for a while and need a change, even if they don't necessarily realize it.
Yeah, comfort zones work both ways, right? I mean, there's a reason why it's a comfort. You get to know that group that you're working with. You get to know the other people in it. You get to know where your strengths fit in with theirs, and it can help a project move a little bit faster since you're not having to, like, relearn all that stuff at the beginning. But yeah, I mean, you're spot on. There are times where you want to change things up, and changing the group there, the kind of natural groupings, is a great way to do it. It's not that you're, like, introducing some big new change to the product. You're just trying something new with the team. Yeah, spot on. All right, we're right up at the time here. So anything else you want to, either one of you, throw in on this one? No last minute words of wisdom. See, this is where we miss Jeff. He would have some, like, pithy last minute comment just to throw in there. So we'd have to be like, oh, but we're out of time. So come back next week.
My comment is, I want a whole show, or at least I want a blog post on that 6-week thing that you talked about. I want to learn more about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those where we have tried so many different shipping ideas that I don't know, that 6 weeks is really good because it gives you long enough to make some progress, but short enough where it's like you're still, like, moving. And I will say so part of that was influenced by Nate over at High Rise. When we spun off Highrise into its own company, one of the first things that Nate did was have a regular scheduled monthly update of new features. And he was talking about how you get on this momentum train, right? You keep going, and like you're pushing every month to that release, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks that release, and your customers know it, you know it, and it just kind of makes things hum a little bit better. So yeah, we did it with the 6 weeks. We'll do an episode, or I don't write that much anymore, so yeah, we'll probably do an episode on it. That'll be easier.
Great.
All right, so that's what we thought on this one. Let us know how you do it. Let us know both your successes as a new manager when you started to change things up, and your failures, because those are fun, and we learn from those too. hello@supportops.com. That's the email. We're at supportops on Twitter. And that brings us. Oh, hey, let me give you enough time. Have y'all got the button thing or whatever you need to do since Jeff isn't here?
No, shoot.
Come on. Stalling. It's this week's shout-outs. These are things that are making us happy, so happy. We want to shout them out from the rooftops to let you know how you should be doing, buying, whatever that happens to be this thing. So, okay, we'll start with Carolyn. What's the joke? Let's just.
Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
He was the only one in his field. I don't know.
Yeah, very close. He was outstanding in his field.
Got it.
Oh.
We give you 9 out of 10 points for that.
Nice.
That was solid. I like it.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Oh, all right. The one that my niece told me. My niece is now in preschool 2 days a week, and evidently they teach them corny jokes as well, I guess, like you do at that age. Why do crabs never give to charity? Why do crabs never give to charity? Because they're shellfish.
So good. I was going totally down the wrong track with that.
Oh, see, this is going to be a whole new spin-off show. Like, what's the corniest jokes you can think of? It's going to be great. All right, shout-outs. Chase, let's hit you up first.
Yeah, so I had been looking for a new iPhone case for a while because I hadn't used one, and I figured with a baby maybe I should have some sort of case on my phone. And so anyway, I found it's called the Veil, and it's actually a really thin case, so it sort of just protects against scratches and stuff. So I don't know how well that's going to hold up with a baby, but it looked cool, and it's really thin, so it sort of still gives you the same form factor of a naked iPhone. And it's on Amazon for like, I don't know, $12, $13 or something like that, so super cheap. So if you're looking for a super thin, nice-looking iPhone case, check it out.
Nice. Yeah, all of my stuff now is purchased with how baby-proof is this? So.
Yeah, I might have to reconsider this decision when he gets old enough to play with my phone, but we'll see.
Oh, all right, Carolyn.
Cool. My shout out, my first one, since I already shouted out, is go back to episode 107, Manager Transparency. I thought that was a really great show. And also because we had Diana. And my other shout out is this podcast. It's A16Z. And in particular, I've only listened to one episode so far, but I've like frantically downloaded all the other titles because they look amazing. And this one in particular is called, I lost my link. But basically, it's by the author of the book Originals, and it's talking about like making ideas happen and that kind of thing. And there's so many things. Like, I got to the end of this podcast and I wanted to re-listen to I was out for a walk and I wanted to listen to the whole thing again and write down like 16 different things to read or follow up on or memorize. I thought it was really fascinating. So the link is in the show notes. Doing your job for you, Chase.
You are.
I already actually sent you the link. That's why I get to say that.
Yeah, it's really helpful. I'll say that.
Usually I forget. I'm sorry.
Well, it hadn't been too. I mean, you always get it to me before we go and publish it on Tuesday, so it's fine. Mine is baby related as well. It's one of those where we've been through. We were talking about it prior to the show starting. So Heather and I have been through at least 4 different actual sound machines, like physical ones, and then at least 6 different apps so far that I can count of. And we finally found one, Sound Sleeper, ironically enough, made by parents, a wonderful couple, as far as I can tell from online. See, this is the thing. Like, when you have a problem to solve, find somebody that's been in the same problem. I guarantee you their solution's better than anybody else's. But they have a great sound machine app called Sound Sleeper, and there was one in there that's called The Womb. It's got this nice little, like, muffled heartbeat kind of thing. It puts Elliot, our kid, out in a good 30 seconds flat. Like, I loved it as soon as I downloaded it. And then probably one of those things that you don't think about, but it comes in really handy the first time it happens. There's a sleep duration timer on it too. So when you can set it for however long you want. When it hits 0, it doesn't just automatically cut off, because that would be a little jarring. It actually drops the volume over the course of the next 30 minutes to a nice gradual thing. And then not only does it turn your iPhone off into the sleep mode, so it's not wasting any batteries there. I don't think this was a benefit on the app, but I think this is more Jawbone's doing. We have the little Jawbone mini Jambox thing that we were playing it through. It automatically turned off, saving the battery there. So I just thought that was really cool. Yeah, so we'll have that and Carolyn and Chase's links all in the show notes. Check those out, supportops.co, or if you're using some fancy podcast app, I'm sure it's in there too somewhere. Yeah, that's a wrap for us. If you're feeling generous, do us a favor. Tell a friend about the show. Somebody that, I don't know, is like a new manager. I mean, we've kind of been on the new manager theme lately, so this is probably a good time for them to catch up on the show. Or share your favorite episode on Twitter. That would help out as well. Thanks again for listening, and until we see you again, have an awesome week.